Before we get into the judicial procedures, let's talk about what Joe Rogan recently said about Sean Diddy Combs on his show. Rogan reacted to the Diddy trial, expressing disbelief at the developing information. He compared the difficulty of obtaining information about the case to the difficulties faced in locating the Epstein documents. Rogan claimed that even certain district attorneys in New York were allegedly withholding records and that tremendous pressure was needed to get them disclosed. He thought that numerous important people were likely involved in both incidents and that some well-known figures had attended Diddy's private parties. Rogan viewed the situation as exceedingly suspicious and stated that he had closely watched the trial, calling it crazy and unbelievable.
You know, I've had conversations with people about it, and it's like, Jesus, like just trying to get the documents, like when they're trying to get the Epstein files, like the state of New York, one of the district attorneys was they were hiding documents that have forced them to get documents. I think there's so many powerful people that are on those lists. There's so many powerful people that went and partied. Air quotes, partied. And how many of them went to the Diddy party? Have you been paying attention to the trial?
Oh, yeah.
Trials. Wild.
Rogan went on to imply that he thinks Diddy might spend the rest of his life in prison, even if he avoids a harsh term. Rogan maintained that the damage to his image had already been done. He looked unsure about the final decision but stated that given the public outcry and scope of the consequences, it might not matter much anymore. Diddy's legacy has been gravely soiled, and the results, whether from the judicial system or public opinion, are coming up with him.
Well, Diddy's going to be in jail for the rest of his life. I think he's probably going to get hit up.
Saying though?
I don't know. I don't even think it matters. I mean, it's
Joe. Rogan laughed about the problem, mentioning how many people were captured on film, exclaiming, "There's no party like a Diddy party." He also referenced superstars like LeBron James and Ashton Kutcher, saying that several well-known people attended Diddy's parties, but later claimed they saw nothing inappropriate. Rogan playfully mentioned a person named Darnell, stating that it was obvious he went. He pondered whether Darnell was actually trying to defend himself and found the entire thing amusing, commenting that he might have to call him just to discuss it.
You know,
how many guys were on video saying, "Ain't no party like a Diddy party"? How many people like openly talked about being there?
LeBron?
Yeah, how about Ashton Kutcher? All these people. Like, you guys all went. You didn't see nothing? You didn't see nothing?
Yeah.
Donnell went?
Yeah.
Did he? Of course he did.
Donnell who?
Trying to defend himself.
Is he really? Is he trying to defend himself right now?
It's pretty funny.
I got to call him up. Donnell, you got to back away from that.
Furthermore, Rogan depicted the entire incident as being staged by an evil super genius who was able to influence people by throwing outlandish parties where phones were banned to prevent any records. He described this person as devilish and questioned whether the guy acted alone or as part of a bigger conspiracy. Rogan found some of the trial's disclosures troubling, especially charges that Diddy pushed his girlfriend to have sex with prostitutes. While he watched and acted improperly, he ended in bewilderment, pondering the bizarre nature of the charges.
An evil super genius who figures out how to compromise everybody by providing this crazy freak-off party. Everybody's got to put their phones away. Okay, we're going to put our phone away. No one's going to know anything. Yeah, it means there are cameras everywhere. It's just one guy doing that. What a diabolical human being.
Yeah.
He seems pretty diabolical.
He's probably working with somebody. Or for somebody.
Maybe.
And maybe he just got too far out there.
Some of the shit that came out in the trial, though, like he's forcing his girlfriend to have sex with prostitutes while he was sitting there jacking off with a bandana on. Rub the jizz on his nipples. Like, what are we even talking about?
But what's he going to go away for?
Rogan also claimed that there is video footage of Diddy physically abusing his fiancée, but no charges were filed in connection with the event. He described the entire scene as highly worrisome, listing crazy parties with celebrities, extensive drug usage, and irresponsible behavior. Rogan hypothesized on the ramifications if all of the videos from those events were made public, claiming it would reveal far more than anyone thought.
I think he's even being charged for beating her up. Like the video of him beating her up, he's not even getting in charge for that. Megyn Kelly said that. She said,
Who's got all the videos?
Yeah, what's in the video? What's that about? I mean, what would happen What would happen if we got videos?
We need Candace to do a deep dive.
If we got videos of thousands of celebrities just butt each other and sucking dicks and taking Molly, and guys are passing them around like.
Diddy's federal hearing was already in a state of disarray when something absolutely unexpected happened. Joe Rogan, comedian, analyst, and host of the world's most famous podcast, entered the courtroom alone, with no entourage or legal team, only a small black notepad and a mind full of uncomfortable truths. What had started as casual speculation on his show had now taken a serious turn. Rogan was there to testify under oath, giving first-hand recollections, personal observations, and a collection of evidence that went much beyond the tabloid storylines. As he started to talk, it became clear that this trial was more than simply about a celebrity. It was about exposing systemic flaws. Joe Rogan's statement meant to shed light on a case obscured by speculation and concealment. The trial started. With a bang, the media was abuzz, and the courtroom was filled with reporters. Whispers and rumors circulated, but no one expected Rogan's dramatic appearance as a surprise witness. This wasn't a publicity stunt, it was a decisive action dressed in a dark gray blazer and trousers. Rogan's controlled but commanding manner immediately calmed the gathering. Cameras were not allowed, but courtroom sketch artists hurried to capture his every movement. Meanwhile, Diddy's defense team looked visibly agitated and hesitant. The judge asked Rogan for his name and work. He stated, "I'm here because guests on my podcast have shared first-hand tales that are closely related to what is happening in this courtroom. I also have tapes, which I've kept safe." A ripple of whispers ran through the court. Now Rogan was being treated like a whistleblower. He went on to describe interviews over the years with former bodyguards, ex-label executives, and insiders from the music industry. Many were too frightened to talk openly, so they trusted him not as a judge, but as someone who wouldn't cut the tape when the truth got uncomfortable. Then Rogan dropped a bombshell. In 2023, a guest who was once part of an A-list artist security team said the courtroom exploded with gasps. Diddy appeared spooked, and his legal team quickly objected, but the judge overruled. Joe Rogan pressed on, claiming that one of his podcast guests has personally visited many Diddy events. These weren't just parties, he stated. Guests had their phones confiscated and were even blindfolded. The term Freakoff was used within the industry as a coded reference, and yet everyone behaved as if it were perfectly normal. The prosecution then asked whether Rogan had brought any recordings. He said, "Yes, I gave extracts to the district attorney's office prior to arriving here. They include audio of insiders discussing these occurrences." After forensic investigators verified some of the voices, the judge ordered that the tapes be admitted into evidence. Then Rogan stated something that caught every juror's interest. "I've hosted Navy SEALs, conspiracy theorists, and professors, and I've never heard anything this disturbing from people so high up in entertainment." He stared at Diddy, his words low but angry. "This is more than simply star gossip. It is systemic abuse disguised as platinum records and red carpet grins." The courtroom erupted in gasps. Diddy was frightened, and his legal team quickly objected, but the judge overruled. Joe Rogan went on to say that one of his podcast guests had personally visited several of Diddy's gatherings. He said that these weren't simply parties, but rituals. Guests had their phones seized and were blindfolded. The term Freakoff was used as a coded reference in the business, but everyone acted as if everything was normal. The prosecution then asked if Rogan had any recordings, reading from his notes from the off-air talk. Rogan added, "I witnessed people being recorded without their consent." Diddy called it leverage. When the judge asked if these claims had been verified, Rogan admitted that many of them were anecdotal, but emphasized that there were so many similar accounts from multiple people in timelines that it was hard to ignore. These were not rumors whispered in halls, they were detailed stories with dates, places, and witnesses. He described how he kept a private collection of these unaired episodes protected by NDAs drafted with legal counsel. "I didn't want to be sued into oblivion, but neither did I want this stuff secret." Then he brought up the Jane Doe litigation, claiming that he started connecting dots when the identities and conduct in those legal files matched what his visitors had been hinting at for years. At one point, Rogan said that a music video director approached him in 2022, crying. The director held unreleased, uncut footage from one of Diddy's parties, but was too afraid to share it. He claimed he had been forced into filming the events for more than a decade. Rogan concluded this portion by saying, "This is no longer a court of opinion. It is a reckoning. I'm here because the people who trusted me with the truth need to be heard, even if they're afraid to show their faces." He took a deep breath before focusing on the event that made world headlines. Elon Musk's unexpected remarks on Rogan's show on Jennifer Lopez and Diddy began casually. "We were talking about hypocrisy in Hollywood, how some celebrities speak out on politics but stay silent about people they know personally," Rogan stated. That Elon brought up Jennifer Lopez, the courtroom leaned in, and Elon asked why she never warned anyone. Rogan paused before continuing. The film became viral, but what surprised him was how fast people protected Jennifer Lopez instead of asking what she might be hiding. He told the court about the 1999 nightclub shooting that Shine in prison. Jennifer was in the car when a gun was allegedly thrown out the window. She said Diddy wasn't involved. Diddy walked free. Shine was in prison and Jennifer stayed with Diddy for 2 more years. Rogan let that sink in with the jury before continuing. What does it mean when someone walks away from a shooting, protects the accused and stays with him, while someone else takes the blame? He added a chilling thought: what if you're only perfect for the devil? Rogan leaned forward and shared a story that had weighed heavily on him for months. It involved what one off-air guest called the bunker. A former bodyguard from Diddy's Miami home had appeared on the show in 2022. Rogan said, "We didn't air that interview because he got cold feet, but what the bodyguard told him off mic remained." With Rogan, the guard detailed a reinforced basement-style vault beneath the property, which could only be entered through biometric scanning inside. Rogan stated there were dozens of protected hard drives, which he referred to as the black box. He referred to it as Diddy's personal insurance policy, saying it contained film from so-called Freakoff parties, blackmail material, confidential contracts, and hidden camera recordings of not only unknown people, but also celebrities, high-powered executives, and politicians. The courtroom reacted with another audible gasp. Diddy's defense team moved nervously as one jury went for a glass of water. The guard claimed he once walked in during a backup practice, but was quickly ordered out at gunpoint. "That's Diddy's church," he revealed. Rogan stopped at that phrase. It stayed with him. Diddy's church, because whatever is in that room is sacred to someone, sacred because it holds leverage. The judge allowed the prosecution to use Rogan's affidavit explaining this account as evidence, even though the vault's real existence had not been independently proven. Corroborating remarks from many podcast participants made it useful for showing a pattern of action. Rogan went on to add that 2 other guests, stylists who dealt with Bad Boys, each described a downstairs room with security cameras looking inward. One claimed she was asked to sign an NDA right there in the room, after finding a disguised peephole in a mirror. "That's what's chilling," Rogan noted, adding that people from very different backgrounds described these places and routines in the same way years apart, before revealing a detail the courtroom had never heard before. "About 3 months ago, an anonymous whistleblower approached my team. They claimed to work for a third-party data recovery company based in Miami and said they had been hired to rescue encrypted video files from a corrupted server. According to them, some of the footage showed guests at Diddy's events caught in compromising and disturbing situations. I decided not to broadcast this information but preserved it in my archives because if this case escalates to federal asset, I looked straight at Diddy and said, if you're truly innocent, let them search the basement, open the vault, and reveal what's inside the black box." By then, the mood in the courtroom had changed. Joe Rogan was no longer merely a celebrity witness, he had become a critical informant, showing a deep pattern of manipulation, fear, and silence. "I'd like to address the trends here," he added, looking through a big stack of scribbled notes. "This isn't just about wild parties, it's about power, intimidation, image, and forced silence." Rogan provided a list of past podcast guests who hinted at dark secrets but never revealed them publicly. One such guest was a hairstylist who worked with high-profile celebrities. She appeared on the show to discuss fashion, but she later revealed that she had quit the business because to what she saw at Diddy's events. She described one night at a Hamptons party where she watched someone being discreetly filmed inside a private room using a two-way mirror. When I probed her on who else was present, she paused before muttering a name. Jay-Z's gasps rang around the courtroom. Rogan soon explained that she never said Jay-Z engaged in anything inappropriate. She claimed he was present on several occasions, moving among the events like a ghost, visible but unnoticed. He did not interact or linger, yet he was clearly present. The suggestion was not that Jay-Z committed a crime, but that he watched the incidents and stayed mute. I've heard from former security personnel, dancers, personal assistants, and producers. Rogan said, they each described the same dynamic. Jay-Z and Diddy were two sides of the same coin. One was loud and chaotic, the other controlled and calculating, but the environment was constant. Rogan remembers questioning an industry insider about why no one had ever spoken up against the behavior. The insider laughed and commented, "You don't take down a puff without pulling down two." The prosecution latched on this comment, viewing it as proof of institutional security and people turning a blind eye to keep access. Joe concluded, if Diddy was the fire, Jay-Z was the smoke detector that never went off. He then outlined how his team began getting anonymous threats to end any investigations into Diddy. One sign said, "Don't dig too deep, Joe. You'll end up like the others who tried." Tracking the IP address from where the communication originated, a firm link to Roc Nation's public relations team. The judge accepted this evidence but issued a caution. Rogan turned at the jury and said, "Silence is a weapon, and this whole machine runs on people keeping quiet. But I'm not made that way." His tone hardened as he named the final group of people, those who were in the wrong place at the wrong time. "Everyone remembers the Monzaro lawsuit," he told me, the case where a man claimed he was paraded around a Diddy party wearing a grotesque mask made from human anatomy. "That's not a rumor," Rogan stressed. "I chatted with someone on the yacht, a young filmmaker in his early 20s who had been recruited to catch an event in January 2023. The man claimed he was told to photograph only the pleasant times, but what he saw left him terribly frightened." Rogan read from an anonymous transcript, "Celebs everywhere. LeBron James, Gloria Aston, Jay-Z and Beyoncé were smiling in the front, but farther inside, the sights became darker. Rooms drenched in crimson light housed restrained people, and a masked man was paraded about like a show. The courtroom went dead." Joe added that the videographer stated that at the end of the night, he gave over his memory cards and got $5,000 from Diddy's team in exchange. They promised him a final edited cut, but he never heard back. This testimony was strong since it was directly connected to a legitimate civil suit. According to Rogan, "If you think this is chaos, you're wrong. It's a system." The frightening part is that the people we idolize are in the rooms where all of this takes place. He ended with a grim warning. "If even one of those records is played in court, half of this sector is doomed." Rogers' tone moved once more from celebrity silence to the infamous 2023 yacht party, which was mentioned in court papers but never fully recounted until today. "Some think the yacht narrative is a fiction," Rogan said, "but it's real. I have testimony from two people who were aboard that boat, one crew member and one guest." The courtroom fell quiet. Diddy's attorneys leaned in, muttering hurriedly. Joe Rogan then produced a letter from a former yacht staff member whose identity had been concealed for safety. According to the letter, the staffer had been hired under the guise of filming a private music video. They were told the passengers were VIPs and strictly prohibited from using their phones before boarding. Security conducted thorough searches but once the yacht reached international waters and what the staffer described as a rotation began. New guests were escorted. It was more than just testimony. It was a challenge to the culture of intimidation and a call for responsibility. Whether the supposed film is ever released, the truth has been exposed. This moment may start a larger reckoning, shedding light on the darkest corners, and serving as a sharp warning that no empire built on fear and secrecy can last forever. The narrative is far from over, and the entire world is watching. What are your feelings on this? Share your views in the comments box, and please subscribe and like if you appreciated it.